Are you ready?
We're ready. Wait.
We do broadcast by, Facebook Live, but it's only on me. Nobody else gets shown. So it's only on me. And that way, folks who couldn't make it because of the snow or their health or they're too far away, they can check in and see what we're doing and hear the message and take part in the service. We always try to take Holy Covenant outside these four walls. So that's one of the ways that we do that. So welcome to those here physically present and those online as well. Will you pray with and for me, please? Holy Wisdom, open our hearts and spirits to your presence. May we speak and hear with your grace and power. Amen. So I'm going in a little bit different direction than Roxanne did. I mean, some of that, yes, yeah, but we're going a little further. So Jesus is really full of contradictions. He's preaching in contradictions here, isn't he? And personally, I don't necessarily feel very comforted if someone tells me this, someone who's supposed to be wise and gracious and loving. I don't know about you, but if I'm hungry or sad or being oppressed, to be told it will be better eventually, somehow, maybe in heaven, it's not always very helpful. I mean, yes, there's that long-term goal, but right now, I want something, right now, I need something to eat, or I need some spiritual fulfillment, or I'm lonely, or, I miss that person right now. Someday is not very reassuring when I'm mourning or hungry right now, right? So, I don't get much satisfaction out of the woes part either. that those who are comfortable now will someday get what's coming to them. Because the truth is, most of us are actually, I think, on both lists. In some ways, we may be very wealthy. We have a lot of friends, we have a comfortable home, we have, maybe a loving spouse or friends and so on, family. But maybe our health isn't so good. Or, so we don't feel very rich that way, right? Or maybe we aren't feeling pushed to the margins of society, but our income is barely enough to live on. So we're rich in some things and poor in others, right? Our reality is that we are both blessed and downcast. Our lives are not all they should be, but they're not as bad as they could be. But somehow that's not very reassuring either, right? It could always be worse is not a motto I want to live by. So let's look at this more closely. Look at what Jesus is saying more closely. Who is Jesus talking to here? Well, there's a crowd of people, as the interesting puppets said. There's a crowd of people who've been following him and want him to teach them how to live. Well, that's fair enough. But how do these Beatitudes, as they're called, the blessed are you bits, and the woes stack up as life advice or as observations? And I think part of our problem with this passage is that we have heard these so often, not only in church, but in other ways, right? As part of, cliches, or part of those truisms that we tell each other. There's always somebody worse off. God has a reason even if we don't know what it is. What goes around comes around, right? It will get better. But, as comforting as those are in the moment, we also know that these are not necessarily satisfying always, or even always true, right? Sometimes people do get away with things. Sometimes it doesn't get better, right? So we can't help but be skeptical about all these blesseds and woes, or at least I can. Sometimes, maybe even often, they do come true. The sad time comes to an end. Our health improves. We get a better job. Legislation is passed to rectify, a wrong. But not always. And sometimes it doesn't come soon enough. The healing, or the job offer, or the affirmation. So what do we do with these? Do we repeat them as a mantra or as a charm when we're stressed? Or at the other extreme, do we ignore them? I mean, those are sort of the two, But there's something in the middle, because I don't think we want to do either one. I think, as people of faith, we have to wrestle with them a little bit. Dismissing them doesn't do us any good, and neither does swallowing them wholesale, because that's not intellectually honest or spiritually honest either. Our faith tells us that there is something true about them. We felt that truth. We know there is something true about it. But our knowledge of the world, our experience, tells us that things don't always work like that, right? We want to believe that everything will work out right, and I tend to be an optimist myself, but we know that it doesn't always. Certainly, we can take hope from the blessings that one day we will not be hungry, oppressed, poor, or mourning. And we can take warning from the woes that we may think we have everything we need, but it may well be taken from us, right? But is that enough to glean from this reading? To be frank, it feels a bit wishy-washy to just leave it at that. Well, sometimes things are going to be good, and sometimes they will be bad. So be careful not to be complacent when they're good, but don't give up when they're bad. Okay. Surely Jesus could come up with something better than that, and surely there's more here than that. Something in me rebels at saying, just endure, it might get better and it could get worse. Yeah, I don't know. That's not very comforting to me. Maybe we could take another look at what it means to be blessed. It can be, the word blessed can be what's called insider language, a language that has a special meaning for people in a group such as the church. The word may be used by the world at large, as blessed is, but for this group, it has a distinct and special meaning. Now, for most people out in the world, blessed simply means having something good. Someone may be referred to as blessed with good genes, right? Or a trip to the beach may be blessed with good weather. So those are sort of the worldly uses of blessed. But in a spiritual sense, and certainly within the Christian church, blessed or a blessing has a different meaning. Here the idea is of a gift from the divine, or having a gift from God. For example, Abraham was told that his descendants would be a blessing to the nations. They were blessed in order to be a blessing. And the first step towards sainthood in the Roman Catholic Church is to be recognized as having a special gift or gifts from God, and such individuals are called blessed on their way to being saint so-and-so. They're blessed so-and-so, right? And pagans actually use the term too, blessed be, indicating a wish for the gods, the divine, to look favorably on the other person. So blessed means more than simply good things. It means a gift from God. So if we look at this reading in this light, maybe we can see something a little different emerging. We think of God's gifts as all those good things we want, and assume that a blessing is receiving those good things. What if we thought of a blessing as a setting apart, a sort of sanctification, rather than goodies for right behavior, or the luck of the draw that genes and good weather are? A gift. I submit that a blessing may not necessarily be a shower of good things, but simply something bestowed on us by God, which may or may not be pleasant, or even what we want. A blessing will work for good, but it's not always going to be something wonderful. The gift of healing others is a blessing, for example. But for those who have that gift and who exercise it, it can be tiring and distressing and even burdensome as they share that gift, right? Not everyone is going to be healed, and it takes mental, physical, and spiritual energy to heal. Even Jesus got tired of healing sometimes, right? If you look through the Gospels. So the challenge for us with our blessings is to understand how they are good and how they can be a burden or painful, and some, as Jesus points out here, are simply difficult. Hunger for physical food for the body is a basic human need. How can that be a good thing? It's not necessarily on its own a good thing. I don't think Jesus is saying that. I mean, it may give us an appreciation for what we do have. As Roxanne pointed out, superficially, physical hunger can lead us to appreciate a meal. Spiritual hunger can lead us to a closer communication, closer relationship with the divine. Hunger for mercy and justice can lead us to change the world around us. And in those ways, hunger can be a blessing. Recognizing the blessings in our lives, even in the difficulties, shouldn't be an exercise in banality. God will work the bad things out for good, but a way to grow closer to God, to see the work to which we have been called, and to understand it as indeed a gift, even when it looks very different to the rest of the world. So, what are your blessings? With what have you been blessed? And how will that gift draw you closer to God? As we approach the season of Lent, the season preparing for Easter, a time of reflection and focus on our spiritual life, consider these things. What is your gift, your blessing? And how can it be a blessing to you and to the world? In all God's names, amen.
Amen. Amen.
One of the